the talented contemporary female musician, after finishing her performance, unfortunately got into a car accident. But, unexpectedly, her soul was transferred into the body of a fool. At that moment, the fool was fighting an old woman for food, and even snatched a child's toy. The child cried endlessly as its toy was taken away. At first, the woman who had crossed over thought she was still dreaming, and began to aggressively flirt with the man in her arms. The old wooden bed, unable to bear the pressure, collapsed with a loud crash. It was then that the woman woke up from her dream. She looked around, noticing the old furniture in the room. At that moment, a poster caught her eye. It was then she realized she had crossed over to the 20th century. Soon after, she pushed open the door to the unfamiliar house. Her appearance caused quite a stir among the neighbors, because usually, when the sun didn't shine on her backside, she would never get out of bed. From the neighbors, the woman learned that the original owner of this body was infamous for being lazy and a glutton. Even the man she had been in bed with earlier had been tricked into marriage by using her father's life-saving debt as leverage. Just then, a woman in military uniform entered the yard, and immediately, the neighbors' attitudes shifted. They all rushed to greet her with excessive politeness. The woman in uniform secretly had feelings for her husband, so she was eager to get rid of the woman and take the commander for herself. The scheming woman, in front of the neighbors, acted especially understanding and considerate. Fortunately, the husband didn't seem to have much affection for her. When they met outside, they simply exchanged a greeting. Before the man returned to his room to rest, the woman saw this situation and became very angry. Although the scheming woman had temporarily driven away her rival, she couldn't live by depending on a man. So, she told her husband that she would find a job and support herself, and that they would divorce afterward. But before the man could respond, the scheming woman, from around the corner, jumped up happily at the news. Seeing it as her chance, she mocked the woman for being fat and ugly, saying she was better off going out to shovel manure. After the scheming woman left, the woman decided to make a facial mask to improve her skin. But in the 1980s, resources were scarce, so she had to use simple materials as substitutes. She then went to the art troupe, where the teacher was struggling to find a suitable musician. The woman saw an opportunity and wanted to show her talent, but just as she was about to perform, the scheming woman jumped out and mocked her coldly, saying that apart from shoveling manure, how could she possibly perform such an elegant act? The others who had failed the interview joined in, saying she was just there to cause trouble. But the woman wouldn't stand for such humiliation, so she decided to use a violin that had never been played before. But to her surprise, violins were so rare at the time that no one in the city knew how to play one. They were afraid she might damage it and wouldn't be able to pay for it, so they refused to let her use it. But the next moment, the man stepped forward to vouch for her. This made the woman look at her husband in a new light, and when she played the violin, her movements were incredibly graceful, leaving everyone around her stunned. The talented contemporary female musician, after finishing her performance, unfortunately got into a car accident. But, unexpectedly, her soul was transferred into the body of a fool. At that moment, the fool was fighting an old woman for food, and even snatched a child's toy. The child cried endlessly as its toy was taken away. At first, the woman who had crossed over thought she was still dreaming, and began to aggressively flirt with the man in her arms. The old wooden bed, unable to bear the pressure,